The fourth, we believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Comey was with a group of intelligence agency heads, briefing Trump and his top aides on how the Russians interfered in our election.
President-elect Trump's first question was to confirm that it had no impact on the election. And then the conversation, to my surprise, moved into a PR conversation about how the Trump team would position this and what they could say about this. They actually started talking about drafting a press release with us still sitting there. And the reason that was so striking to me is that that's just not done. That the intelligence community does intelligence, the White House does PR and spin.
You also said you were struck by what they didn't ask.
Very much. No one, to my recollection, asked, so what's coming next from the Russians? How might we stop it? What's the future look like? It was all, what can we say about what they did and how it affects the election that we just had?
Oh, my God. That, put all the salacious stuff aside, although I can't, because I have my boyfriend talking about golden showers now all over the TV, and it gives me the willies, the chills. It's as if I would talk to my boys here about that and me be in the scene. You know what I mean? It would make their skin crawl. It would upset them. It would offend everything that they know and love about me. And to hear James Comey have to talk about that is just, I'm sorry, but for this reason, I must ask the president to resign. I'm only half kidding. It is so bizarre to listen to what is in this book. ABC released a few little snippets, previews of what James Comey is going to talk about on Sunday night. And that isn't going to be the end of it. James Comey is going to be on a book tour. He's going to be on a media blitz. And everything that's in this book has been corroborated by other people who were in the room when some of these things happened. For instance, when James Comey, James Clapper, the entire intelligence community had to brief the incoming president-elect Donald Trump about the intelligence findings that clearly showed that Russia had interfered in our election, and the incoming president did not have one question about, oh my God, how bad was it? What do we do to protect the United States? Do you think that they're still inside? How do we take steps to make sure that we kick them out? What am I going to need to do as president of the United States? Somebody tell me, how does this all work? Because I'm a reality TV show host, and I don't understand, the CIA, the DIA, the NSA. I don't understand how intelligence works. I don't even use email. But instead, he only asks, well, how does this make America perceive me? Will I be legitimate? Let's put out a press release. Let's do something. Let's twist the story now. Let's make it. And James Clapper happened to have been in the room during that intelligence briefing. And he said,
James Comey writes about his first meeting with Trump after the election in January, and you were at that meeting. Comey says after you briefed the Trump team on the Russian election interference, he was taken aback by what the Trump team didn't ask. And here's what he writes before I get your response. They were about to lead a country that had been attacked by a foreign adversary, yet they had no questions about what the future Russian threat might be. Instead, he writes, they launched into a strategy session about how to spin what we just told them for the public. Is that your recollection?
Yes, it is, Don. That is accurate. In fact, Reince Priebus, who was then the chief of staff designate, this was on the 6th of January during our briefing at Trump Tower. Even before we left the room, he's starting to draft a public release,
a press
release on the briefing, and wanted to make the point that what we said was that the Russian interference had no impact on the outcome of the election, which was just not true. And we had to remind him of that a couple times, and he really couldn't say that. What we did say in our report was that we saw no evidence of meddling with voter tallies, which is quite different. And that's not to say there wasn't meddling. We just didn't have any evidence of it. But it was way beyond the charter, the capabilities, and the authority of the intelligence community to gauge what impact the Russian meddling had on the electorate.
So there's witnesses, obviously, and the intelligence community was in on this briefing. And, yes, Trump was not curious. It's almost as if, he knew. Do you know? I mean, when you read some of these excerpts, you realize the president of the United States currently had no curiosity about this. It's as if he knew. It's as if he, was kind of, down with it. He never once asked, how do we protect the United States against a foreign incursion into our electoral process? How do we protect America first? This is the most important thing, I think, about all of it, except to tell you that it just pains me no end that, I can't be in a room. Well, who would want to be in a room with Trump this weekend? He's going to be screaming all week. They already say he's he is off the hook. He is unhinged. They said they've never seen him this much, howling from him, this much crazy from him. They have never seen him so desperate and so nasty and so horrified and so scared and so and I tell you, I would not want to be in a room with Trump this weekend. I don't even want to be in a country that's run by him. I don't want to be in any country that we can reach with our nuclear weapons this weekend. I guess that covers everybody. Nobody wants to be with him. Now, Comey in the book calls the Trump presidency a forest fire. I call it a dumpster fire because, forest fires can do a lot of good for the ecosystem when you think about it. Do you know what I mean? Yes, there's a lot of crap to clean up after a forest fire, but it could be a good thing. So, let's forget all the fire analogies, although I would go to the dumpster immediately, the dumpster fire. Let's just call it what it is. It's an overflowing toilet. Forget the swamp. This is the freaking cesspool. This is the drainage ditch in your backyard. This is an outhouse that's just, from camp or West Virginia. I mean, this is just unbelievable. And Comey writes in the book that this president gave him flashbacks to his earlier career as a prosecutor against the mob. The difference, of course, is the mob was successful for a long time. And the Trump organization is like some big family dysfunctional thing that's now being, it's being dissected by, the federal authorities. I mean, Michael Cohen today, we found out, is under investigation for crimes. He's under criminal investigation, but whatever the crime is has been redacted from anything that's been given to the press. There was a hearing today. Michael Cohen's lawyers are arguing that they don't like the system that we have, where we have, oh God, I can't even believe we call it this, but there's a team of unrelated lawyers inside the Justice Department that have nothing to do with any investigation into the president or investigating the executive branch. They're just, completely separate and apart from an investigative unit. And what they do is they would read the emails between Michael Cohen and people Michael Cohen wrote to see if there was any attorney-client privilege that's been, violated without a crime. Oh my God, without a crime fraud exception, right? Because once you, aid a client in a criminal conspiracy or in a fraud, and you help them accomplish that conspiracy or that fraud or that crime, it's no longer protected, as we all know. So there's a team, and they call it, I'm just so grossed, a taint team. Oh, gross. And they look at all the emails and they go over it and they, But listen, here's the other story about Michael Cohen. Apparently, Michael Cohen, tape recorded his phone conversations with people who weren't his client, who weren't Donald Trump. And why did he do it? According to the papers today, he did it because he wanted to use those phone conversations as leverage over these people who didn't know they were being recorded, because in New York, you only need one party consent, meaning if we were in New York and you called me or I called you, I could record you just by me saying, I consent to this recording, and you would have no idea. So Michael Cohen apparently tape recorded phone calls to use as leverage over Trump aides. Now, that's not leverage for, your client. That is blackmail. And this is probably where Trump got the idea that, to tweet out to Comey, you better hope there's no tapes. You better hope there's, and remember, and Comey said, Lordy, I hope there are tapes. Well, Lordy, I hope there are tapes too of Michael Cohen, because, he only apparently had the one, he has another client that we know of now. Now we know that Michael Cohen also represented a man who was, a vice chair of the Republican National Committee, a big fundraiser named Briotti. Michael Cohen apparently negotiated a $1.6 million non-disclosure agreement to another Playboy model. This one had an affair with the fundraiser. This one had an affair with the vice chair of the Republican National Committee, this guy Briotti, who, he wasn't going to hire Michael Cohen, but what Michael Cohen told him that he knew the lawyer for the girls, for all the girls. He knew, Stormy Daniels' attorney, the same attorney for all of them, before they left, because they realized something, there's an inside game being played against us, and we're the client. So they were all represented by this one lawyer who was always talking to Michael Cohen. Stormy Daniels was represented by this one lawyer, and so was Karen McDougal, the Playboy model, who actually, I'm so embarrassed for her, not because she showed much too much in public. I don't mean skin. I mean, she said she loved Donald Trump. She was in love with him. Ew. Oh, the whole, I got to tell you right now, if you're listening, the whole show's going to be a gag fest. Okay, there's just too much vomit-inducing stuff in here. But so now there's another Playboy model, another Playboy bunny, they call her, that had an affair, a 1 or 2 year consensual affair with this fundraiser who just recently did the fundraiser for Donald Trump in LA. When he finally went out to Los Angeles, this guy raised the money. He raised like $108 million for Donald Trump as a fundraiser. And so he consulted with Michael Cohen, but he didn't want to hire Michael Cohen until Michael Cohen gave him the inside scoop that he knows the lawyers for all these girls and that they all talk to each other on behalf of his special client. So this Briotti guy apparently did contract with Michael Cohen, who then negotiated a non-disclosure agreement for this Playboy model, who, by the way, said, and he admits, that she came to me and told me she was pregnant, so I helped her out financially. There's your pro-life party. And they wrote in the non-disclosure agreement that she would be eligible for child support, but she said, oh no, he took care of it. I had an abortion. And then she agreed that she would get $1.6 million to never tell this story, paid in quarterly payments. Can you imagine these phone conversations? These Republicans, these fine family values people, and speaking of family values people, David Vitter, the little diaper boy senator, his wife is now nominated for a federal judgeship.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I'm about to meet with a person who doesn't know me. He's just been elected president of the United States. By all accounts, and from my watching him during the campaign, could be volatile. And I'm about to talk to him about allegations that he was involved with prostitutes in Moscow and that the Russians taped it and have leverage over him.
Was there any choice there? Why, if this was salacious and this particular part of the dossier unverified, still unverified, by the way?
Yes. So far as when I got fired, it was unverified.
Did you tell him that the Steele dossier had been financed by his political opponents?
No. I didn't even think I used the term Steele dossier. I just talked about additional material.
But did he have a right to know that?
that have been financed by his political opponents? I don't know the answer to that. It wasn't necessary for my goal, which was to alert him that we had this information.
How graphic did you get?
Really?
I think as graphic as I needed to be. I started to tell him about the allegation was that he had been involved with prostitutes in a hotel in Moscow in 2013 during a visit for the Miss Universe pageant, and that the Russians had filmed the episode. And he interrupted very defensively and started talking about it. You know, do I look like a guy who needs hookers? And I assumed he was asking that rhetorically. I didn't answer that, and I just moved on and explained, sir, I'm not saying that we credit this, I'm not saying we believe it. We just thought it very important that you know.
Did you tell him you thought it wasn't true, or you didn't know if it was true or not?
I never said I don't believe it, because I couldn't say one way or another.
How weird was that briefing?
Really weird. It was almost an out-of-body experience for me. I was floating above myself, looking down, saying, you're sitting here briefing the incoming president of the United States about prostitutes in Moscow.
Oh, God. Oh, God. And what's Trump's reaction? Do I look like a guy who needs prostitutes? No, you look like a guy who has prostitutes, is what it is. You have prostitutes. Some of them are named Reince, some of them are named Ryan, some of them are named John Kelly. You know, I mean, there's a million prostitutes around you. Michael Cohen obviously is a fixer of criminal behavior for you for money. Of course, you don't need prostitutes. You have prostitutes. But I mean, Comey kept saying that, you know, that Trump brought up women who had accused him of sexual assault, and that he seemed to have, memorized all of their allegations. What is he like? He's like a serial killer. He's like Dexter. What does he keep, like something on a slide in the air conditioning box or something like that? I mean, he must have a scrapbook somewhere. People I grabbed. I don't know what it's called. Prostitutes I almost loved. I have no earthly idea. But Comey says he kept bringing up the topic of, the P tape. He kept bringing up the golden showers. Oh, to hear Comey say that, it's just so. And he said he kept bringing it up. He brought it up at least 4 times with Comey. So if he didn't do it, he's certainly obsessed with it. I mean, the idea of it, he's probably thinking, oh, and it was supposed to have happened in a room where Obama slept. Why didn't I think of soiling Obama's bed? Why didn't I think of that? I mean, it's just so sick. It's so sick. And then
January 27th, at a private dinner in the White House, President Trump raises the issue again.
Says he may want me to investigate it to prove that it didn't happen. And then he says something that distracted me, because he said, if there's even a 1% chance my wife thinks that's true, that's terrible. And I remember thinking, how could your wife think there's a 1% chance you were with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow?
Oh, don't.
I'm a flawed human being, but there's literally 0 chance that my wife would think that was true. So what kind of marriage to what kind of man does your wife think there's only a 99% chance you didn't do that? And I said to him, sir, when he started talking about it, I may order you to investigate that. I said, sir, that's up to you, but you'd want to be careful about that, because it might create a narrative that we're investigating you personally. And second, it's very difficult to prove something didn't happen.
Did you believe his denial?
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible.
Oh, God. Oh, gag. Oh, my little Boy Scout talking about prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow. This is anathema, people. This is poison. What this president has done. He's taken away the innocence of my boyfriend. I cannot fathom anything worse. This is amazing, though. Really, this is amazing. I mean, remember, Comey really isn't a Boy Scout. He brought down the Gambino crime family. You understand that? He actually did bring down the Gambino crime family, and he doesn't hesitate to say on the pages of this book that, I'm pre-ordered. I'm nobody special, so I don't have it either. I will say I was very, proud of my boyfriend. I was very proud that Michiko Kokotani from the New York Times reviewed his book. That's amazing. That is just amazing. And she liked it. Michiko Kokotani is the lead book reviewer for the New York Times, has been forever, to get a book into her hands, to get her to read a book, to get her to write it. And she wrote an 8-page review of it. It's just wow. And so she loved it. She called it absorbing. She said in his absorbing new book. And she goes through it, and this is where a lot of the passages that you've heard come from, is Michiko Kokotani's review. But it's just so sad. It's just so sad that, now you've got, a guy who is in a room with the President of the United States, and he's equating him. He's thinking about the days that he spent as a prosecutor in New York, undoing and prosecuting the Gambino crime family, and thinking this is so similar to that. It's the same, culture of lying. It's the same. Let me just tell you what he said. He said, a February 2017 meeting in the White House with Trump, then Chief of Staff Reince Priebus left Comey recalling his days as a federal prosecutor facing off against the mob. Quote, "The silent circle of assent, the boss in complete control, the loyalty oaths, the us versus them worldview, the lying about all things large and small in service to some code of loyalty that put the organization above morality, above the truth." He says that the visit to Trump Tower in January made him think about the New York Mafia social clubs he knew in Manhattan as a prosecutor in the 80s and the 90s, the Ravenite, the Palma Boys, Cafe Giardino. He said, "We are experiencing a dangerous time in our country with a political environment where basic facts are disputed, fundamental truth is questioned, lying is normalized, and unethical behavior is ignored, excused, or rewarded. Dishonesty," he writes, "was central to the entire enterprise of organized crime on both sides of the Atlantic. And so, too, were bullying, peer pressure, groupthink, repellent traits shared by Trump and company, and now infecting our culture." He writes about how now this is a guy who served in 3 presidential administrations, okay? And he writes about how ignorant the president is about his basic duties as president, and how willfully he has flouted the checks and balances that safeguard our democracy, including the essential independence of the judiciary and law enforcement. And Michiko says that he has a gift for the narrative that was clearly honed during his days as United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Oh, this is like the best review you could ever get. I mean, it's just amazing. But anyway, these clips are hair-raising, okay? They just are. James Clapper, was asked about, well, the question that George Stephanopoulos asked, well, why didn't you tell him who financed the dossier? The real answer to who financed the dossier is half of it was financed by Republicans, and the back half was financed by a Democratic lawyer, right? So he said he didn't think it was necessary to tell him because he wasn't saying he believed it. He was just trying to give the president some idea of the things that were being said about him abroad by his very best friend, Vladimir Putin's Russia. And he wanted him to know, and that they'd already briefed Obama, and that they were briefing him on, what the Russians said to, out loud that they had on Donald Trump. And Donald Trump never asked, how do we get to the bottom of this? Or, what were the story? He doesn't ask a single question. He goes, his answer was, do I look like a guy who needs prostitutes? No, because you have prostitutes. You don't look needy. You look like you're good to go. So James Clapper was asked about it, and then he said, but parts of the dossier were corroborated, weren't they? And he goes, yes, but just remember, we never relied on the dossier.
And there have been aspects of the dossier, not the salacious parts, that have been corroborated, right?
Absolutely. In fact, there were some parts of it that were actually corroborated in our intelligence community assessment. But to be clear, we did not draw on the dossier at all for what went into our intelligence community assessment, which we had, very high confidence level. And
which is also which is a talking point of the Trump White House and conservative media, that the entire, the genesis of the Russia investigation was a dossier, and you say no.
No, and again, not all of it bear in mind what the dossier is. You know, it's a collection of 17 separate memos, which I would equate to what we would do as first instance reporting. And some of it was corroborated, some of it isn't. Some of it's been corroborated since our intelligence community.
Well, let me ask you this. It's also, why does he, because he seems fixated on this, and again, Comey brings it up, on this, the salacious parts of the dossier. I don't want to say that term again. Why does he want to say that something that he believes is not true, that he wants to keep talking about it, and he wants Comey to help him with that?
Well, I don't know, but you know, it does conjure up, you know, thou dost protest too loudly. Mm-hmm. You know, you wonder why
he
so
denied the tape
with
ever existed. So, but he keeps bringing it up.
Exactly. So why is that? Well, I won't profess to speculate, but it's very curious. And again, what comes to my mind is thou dost protest too loudly.
You know, it's one of three things, okay? Either he knows that he did it and he knows there's a tape out there, or he thinks it's a great idea and just wants to keep talking about it. But or you know, some combination of both. He thinks it's a great idea. It's happened since, but he knows he wasn't recorded. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know. Nobody knows. But he keeps bringing it up to Comey. He brings it up 4 separate times. 4 separate times he brings it up. And, you know, this expression, lift the cloud? Apparently, the lifting of the cloud is the cloud of urine. That is the cloud he's talking about. In fact, it's in the context of he wanted to lift the cloud because it was so painful for Melania. So that's the cloud. Didn't you always think the cloud was something else? Didn't you think the cloud was that, you know, the Russian interference was it's a hoax? Or whatever, you know, I just, oh my God, I just can't wait to get the book. I get it on the 17th. If you've pre-ordered, you'll get it that day if you got it from Amazon, because Amazon guarantees delivery on the release date. Bezos, you better come through. You better come through. Oh, and you know, just there's another gross thing. You know, Trump has set up some task force, just like his voter fraud task force that doesn't exist anymore because there was no voter fraud. But now he set up a task force to look into the Postal Service without naming Jeff Bezos or Amazon as being a culprit, when it's absolutely clear that Amazon's business is helping to support the Postal Service. If you want to know, in a nutshell, why the Postal Service had a rough time of it and why the Postal Service was so short on cash. Okay, part of it was, and this is the, you know, obvious, but part of it was direct mail, you know, things like us sending letters to each other slowed because we now send email. But, you know, if you go to your mailbox, you're still going to see lots and lots and lots and lots of direct mail, aren't you? So the idea that we don't do direct mail anymore in this country is bunk. It's garbage. It's not true. Go to your mailbox today and you tell me if there's anything in your mailbox that you wanted. Tell me if you got anything that you wanted. Tell me if you got, you know, anything, because we're all paperless now with our bills or whatever. No, it's going to be full of postcards for realtors. It's going to be full of offers from credit card companies. It's all direct mail. So that's not true. I'll tell you what is true. In 2006, and we did so many shows about this because I'm telling you, the postal workers, the UPS drivers are some of our best listeners because they were in their cars all day. They were in their trucks all day. They were making deliveries all day, and they were great listeners. They'd listen to the whole show, even when the show was 4 hours a day. In 2006, they did this Postal Service Enhancement Act. And you know what it forced the Postal Service to do, unlike every other government agency? It forced them to pay all of the pension benefits for 75 years going forward. Oh, yeah, to make deposits into a pension fund for people they hadn't even hired yet, for people that weren't even born yet. And it took all the money away from the Postal Service because they were forced by legislation that was signed off by George W. Bush to put all of their money, and they don't get taxpayer dollars, as you now know. They were forced to put all of their money into these pension funds to cover people that weren't even freaking born yet. That is why the Postal Service was talking about firing 120,000 postal workers in 2006. Okay? And so I want our listeners who just started listening, or our listeners who don't remember the old shows from 2006, this is 12 years ago, that is the bomb that was placed inside. Why? To privatize. That's why. To privatize Postal Service. But anyway, so this is what he's done today. He's ordered some task force because he wants to attack Jeff Bezos, who, by the way, if my book, my Comey, my higher loyalty, does not show up on the 17th, I'll volunteer to be on that task force and I'll take down Amazon. Kidding. But I can't wait to get the book just to look in the index. I want to see if it says golden showers anywhere in the index. I want to see if it says P, Russian prostitutes on bed, C, Moscow trip. I got to admit, I always read the index first, especially with celebrity books, to see if I'm in it. I was peeved when I was not in Al Franken's book. Peeved, I tell you. But honestly, this is just mind-blowing.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Comey writes, Trump brought up the dossier compiled by the former British intelligence officer. That dossier alleged that Russians had so-called, I can't believe I'm saying this, golden showers tape, a golden shower tape involving prostitutes. And then Comey writes, as he said, he brought up what he called the golden showers thing, adding that it bothered him if there was even a 1% chance his wife Melania thought it was true. And then, according to the paper, according to the Washington Post, Comey goes on to write this. He says, in an apparent play for my sympathy, Trump said that he has a beautiful wife and the whole thing has been very painful for her. He asked what we could do to lift the cloud.
See?
Is that an appropriate request to an FBI director?
Well, no, it isn't. I mean, this is, let's use the FBI to get me out of trouble, out of the doghouse with my wife.
Oh, my God.
Which is, improper use of, by any measure, a capability like the FBI. I will tell you, though, that I didn't have that kind of detailed conversation with then President-elect Trump about the infamous dossier, but I do know he's preoccupied with it, because when I called him on the 11th of January, 5 days after our briefing, to complain about referring to the intelligence community as Nazis, since he blamed us for having released the dossier. And once again, his major interest was asking me to put out a public statement saying that the dossier was all phony and all that. And I couldn't do that and wouldn't do it.
Oh, my God. That's all he was interested in, was himself. Aren't you people sick of it being about him all the time? Aren't you tired of it? I mean, it's Friday the 13th, and he's like in a tiz. He's like livid and marching around screaming at people, according to people inside the White House who are talking to Maggie Haberman at the New York Times, and Tom Hamburger and all the other great journalists out there whose names you don't know. They're telling you this man is off the hook. It's Friday the 13th. He's threatened to bomb Syria, and we don't know. Everybody's sitting here holding their breath about Trump and his how he's going to perceive, the truth about, what the intelligence community found and briefings that he got and what, really, the whole world has to hold its breath, because we have a lunatic in the White House. We have a narcissist demagogue in the White House who every single thing he heard about Russia attacking us, he saw through a lens of, well, how does that reflect on my presidency? How does that reflect on my election? How does that reflect on me? That's so sick And that's why I started with the most important thing. And the most important thing is that when he was told that the intelligence community had, beyond a shadow of a doubt, concluded that Russia hacked into the DNC, Russia was responsible for giving those WikiLeaks dumps to those hacked documents to WikiLeaks, and that there was, an inordinate amount of fake news out there, and that the president, was running around saying the election is rigged, and now what do you do because there was incursion and we were attacked by a foreign adversary, and they're not telling it to him as if he did it. They're telling it to him as findings of the intelligence community, and he knows he did it, so he's sitting there going, well, what about me? How does that make me look? Instead of saying, really, that's shocking, that's horrible, oh my God, how do I protect the United States? I'm the incoming president, and wow, they say this is the toughest job in the world, and it's already started, and I haven't even been sworn in yet. Please brief me. How does cybersecurity work? How did we know? What methods do you use to track these things down? No. Obviously, he knew he did it. He wasn't surprised to hear it. He wasn't interested in solutions for it or retaliation for it. He was, how does this affect me? This is a very sick man. And the whole world is holding its breath all weekend this weekend because they don't know what he's going to do about, his threats that he makes on the Twitter. Oh, today, I got to say, he pardoned Scooter Libby today. This is another throwback to the Bush administration, okay? Everybody remember Scooter Libby? He leaked the name of Valerie Plame, a non-official cover CIA operative. Because Scooter Libby and Richard Armitage, Dick Cheney's men back during the buildup to the Iraq War were out there talking to reporters and telling them that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and that he had chemical belts around Baghdad and he could hand them off to terrorists, and he would, and Al-Qaeda was in Iraq, which they weren't, and all this crap. And so Joe Wilson, who was Valerie Plame's husband, was dispatched as a diplomat to Africa to track the transfer of yellow cake uranium from Africa, from Niger specifically, to Iraq. And he came back and he wrote an op-ed for the New York Times called "What I Didn't Find in Africa." And because Joe Wilson was married to Valerie Plame, who also had an interesting job, she was a non-official cover CIA operative, they decided at the Bush administration to punish this family for screwing up all the lying they did to get us to, be supportive of a giant invasion into an unarmed nation. And Dick Cheney's men, specifically Scooter Libby and Richard Armitage, outed Valerie Plame to the press, to Judith Miller specifically, who did 85 days in jail because she wouldn't reveal her source. Turns out 8 other witnesses testified that the source was Scooter Libby. And Scooter Libby lied to the grand jury twice, lied to the special prosecutor, Patrick Fitzgerald, who just so happened to be appointed by the deputy acting attorney general, who was James Comey. Not acting, the deputy attorney general. James Comey appointed an independent prosecutor, a special counsel, Patrick Fitzgerald, who brought it in front of a grand jury, brought Scooter Libby in front of a grand jury. Under oath, Scooter Libby not only lied to the FBI, not only lied to the grand jury, did it twice. He was convicted on 4 felonies. George Bush commuted his sentence. He got 2.5 years in prison for this, for outing a CIA operative, for leaking her name to the press. And George Bush thought that was excessive, so he commuted his sentence. And today, Donald Trump suddenly out of nowhere pardons Scooter Libby. I'll tell you why Scooter Libby's top of mind for him all of a sudden. It's because John Bolton, one of Cheney's guys who also fabricated information to get the American people to support this giant invasion into which we're still paying for in Syria now, no less. John Bolton must have brought it up, and Victoria Tensing has John Bolton as a client for the purpose of getting a pardon. It's a long process. Howard got a pardon for a couple people in his life, and it's unbelievably hard. But she's the lawyer for Scooter Libby on the issue of the pardon. And of course, maybe they're trading their services for the benefit of because they were too conflicted. Remember, they couldn't, they were being considered for Trump's attorneys. They were going to, go into the White House or go sign Trump up as a client, and they couldn't because they had conflicts of interest. Victoria Tensing, who is Joe DeGenevi's law partner, and his wife represents, one of Jared Kushner's guys, and now we find out represents Scooter Libby on his issue of a pardon. All of a sudden today, a pardon comes for Scooter Libby, for freaking Scooter Libby, who leaked the name of an unofficial cover CIA operative. And Trump wants to talk about leaks. He's tweeting about, listen, if you're talking P-tapes or urination parties or golden showers or anything of that nature, I wouldn't be talking about leaks today. That's number one. Number two, if you pardon one of the world heavyweight champion leakers who leaked the name of a deep cover CIA operative, I wouldn't be talking about leaks. Holy crap. Just not a good day to be talking about leaks. Here's Valerie Plame's husband, Joe Wilson, who we all know.
Now, the problem with the pardon is that it's not just a pardon of Scooter Libby, the individual. It's a pardon of the entire neoconservative, subversive movement that drove this country to a false war in 2003, and which still has ambition to drive this country to war in Iran. And what he has done is he has given a blanket pardon essentially to this movement, and he's invited them back into his administration to again lead a charge to take the U.S. to war. So in pardoning Libby and pardoning the neoconservative movement, he is basically given his seal of approval on things that he claimed to have been against, i.e. the war in Iraq.
Are you referring to Bolton when you say welcoming back into the administration?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bolton's just one of them. Bolton, by the way, was intimately involved in the spreading of my wife's identity through the community.
Right. And nobody else has brought that up except for me and Joe Wilson. Isn't that something? And I said it to Scotty, and he goes, oh, Joe Wilson was just on TV, and he said the same damn thing. How could you ignore the fact that Bolton, John Bolton, a man who couldn't even get confirmed by the Senate, is now our national security advisor, taking the place of one Michael Flynn, who was a Russian agent. I mean, honest to God, this is the most corrupt administration in the history of administrations. And Bush, really, to outdo Bush, you had to go a really long way. And let's not forget, it wasn't so, Bush was he was adult. It was Dick Cheney's administration. He was president for a lot longer than you think. Just a sick, sick thing today. The whole thing, the whole day, everything. My eyes feel like little slits because I bet you, usually before the show I read about 100 pages a day. I bet you I read like 200-300 pages today. I was reading for 5 hours today. It's so unbelievable. You feel like, Scotty said, I feel like I'm at a buffet and I'm not even hungry and they keep feeding me. I said, that's how I feel too. It just won't stop. It won't stop. It won't stop. It's like one thing after another. And that's why I'm waiting for them to do a couple things more, like fire Rosenstein today, which won't solve their problem at all, but fire Rosenstein today or bomb Syria tonight. Do you know what I mean? Who the hell knows? These people are insane. And they all are a cabal and everything. I don't know if you saw Sarah today, but Sarah, oh my God, this girl has gone way, way into the punch bowl. She is, like I said, Forrest Trump, except those aren't chocolates. There's something else in that's brown in that box. And it's in the punch bowl. She's the thing in the punch bowl.
The president came out swinging today, calling James Comey a liar, a leaker.
Don't say leaker.
Is he worried about what he's saying?
Not at all. The American people see right through the blatant lies of a self-admitted leaker. This is nothing more than a poorly executed PR stunt by Comey to desperately rehabilitate his tattered reputation and enrich his own bank account by peddling a book that belongs in the bargain bin of the fiction section instead of being remembered as a dedicated servant in the pursuit of justice. Like so many of his other colleagues at the FBI, Comey will be forever known as a disgraced partisan hack that broke his sacred trust with the President of the United States, the dedicated agents of the FBI, and the American people he vowed to faithfully serve. One of the President's greatest achievements will go down as firing Director James Comey.
Why can't Sarah read? Obviously, that was the prepared statement that the President himself wrote. The words alone. It's something in a tweet, that you would see Donald. I mean, meanwhile, today he did tweet, he's a leaker and a liar, and he's, this and he's that, and he's virtually everyone in Washington thought he should be fired for the terrible job he did until he was, in fact, fired. He leaked classified information for which he should be prosecuted. He lied to Congress under oath, and he's weak. And then there was this 16-minute lull. That's where he ended his first tweet. Then 16 minutes goes by, and then he finishes his thought. Untruthful slimeball, who was at the time a proven and terrible FBI director. His handling of the crooked Hillary case and the events surrounding it will go down as one of the worst botched jobs of history. It was my great honor to fire James Comey. You have just pardoned the biggest, most damaging leaker of top secret, highly compartmentalized, classified, eyes only information, Scooter Libby. And the leaking. Okay, the leaking. Today is not the day for him to bring up leaking when everybody is talking about urination parties and golden showers and pee-pee tapes. Not a good day for you to bring up that word. What a lying sack of crap. I mean, there is nothing he won't say. There's no one he won't damage. There's no reputation that's sacred to him. Other people with integrity are a threat to him. And he just rants and raves. And like I said, I wouldn't want to be in any country today.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I respect the fact that Director Comey was able to come back after what he did. I respect that very much. And it took guts for Director Comey to make the move that he made in light of the kind of opposition he had, where they're trying to protect her from criminal prosecution. You know that. Good job by the FBI.
I have respect that the FBI has given it a second chance. The FBI, and I give them a lot of credit because they're fighting forces that they're not supposed to be fighting.
There's little doubt that FBI Director Comey and the great special agents of the FBI will be able to collect more than enough evidence to garner indictments against Hillary Clinton. Oh, and there's James. Will you please? He's become more famous than me.
Jesus, God almighty, he is such a freaking liar. He's such a piece of duty. It's all about him. It's all about him. Nothing is about you. Nothing is about this country. Nothing is about, keeping us safe from, foreign adversaries who attack us. Nothing matters more than he does. Nothing. No head shall be higher than his. Every single thing this man hears and says and processes is, how does it make me look? How does it make me feel? How do I, play out in this story? I mean, it's just unbelievable to me. And everybody around him has either been indicted, pled guilty, or is under criminal investigation. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? Carrie in Dallas.
Randy, you gonna be mad at me again?
No.
Okay, I'm telling you, you're doing the cheerleader thing right now. You're a cheerleader in high school. Don't pick that tall-ass basketball player, why don't you pick the nice, nerdy, good guy, Rosenstein? That's the boyfriend. Comey's good. I'm not going to lie, because he's good because he makes people mad on both sides. But when you make a mistake, Randy, you got to say, hey, man, I made a mistake and move on.
What was the mistake?
The first time he came out with that bitch press conference against Hillary Clinton, the first time, he had to give something to the Republicans. He should have came out and said, hey, we're going to charge
That's
her, not
not,
charge her. Or he could have gave it to Sally Yates. He could have let Sally Yates do it to number 2, just like when he was number 2.
What's the difference?
It's a big difference. It's not him. He shouldn't have got involved.
He's the head of the FBI. He was the head of the FBI. Why would he hand it off?
I don't care. Sally Yates.
Why would he hand it off to the deputy?
Because the number 1 person recused herself. Laura Lynch recused
She didn't
herself.
recuse herself. No, she didn't.
She did recuse.
She did not, and that was the problem. No, what happened was Bill Clinton went on her plane in June, and she didn't recuse herself. What she did was she issued a statement, and she said, whatever the FBI finds, whatever the Justice Department finds, I will go along with it. She never recused herself, so that meant that you had the career professionals making all the decisions about what to do. And James Comey felt like he needed to make an announcement that there was no there, that the investigation proved no intent on her part to give away classified information to a foreign adversary. The way they're
But then he still
And then when the New York FBI sat on Anthony Weiner's computer and handed it over to James Comey 11 days before the election, James Comey went, oh, my God, I told Congress that if I got any new information, I would update them after the case was closed. Okay, that was a question that was asked.
Yes. No, I got it. No, his exact statement was, I would check into it. He didn't say, I'm going to come to you. He said, I'll check into it. That is.
I will what? He said what? I will what?
He said, I will check into it. He said, I'll take a look at it. He said, if you get new information, because it was Chavis. Chavis asked him the question, if you get new information, will you open up a new case? He said,
and then what happened? The New York FBI, James Kallstrom, right? James Kallstrom and Rudy Giuliani went on the TV and started indicating that they had information and they were talking to active agents, which meant that stuff was going to leak. And Comey had no choice but to say that he reopened up the Hillary Clinton investigation because he now has new information about emails between her and Huma Abedin on Anthony Weiner's computer. And he said, and he had to do it. He had to do it. And that's why
I know he had to do that.
Because Rudy Giuliani and James Kallstrom were sitting on the TV saying that they were speaking to active agents in the New York FBI and that these agents were livid. They were pissed. They were going to leak it, that there were emails from Hillary Clinton on that computer. So Comey didn't want it to become, some sort of a crazy story with the New York FBI saying, oh, well, we handed Comey and Comey's covering up, because they were already pissed at Comey because Comey had closed the case because he couldn't find intent.
I know that. But
okay, and that's what happened.
But can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What would the good boy Rosenstein? See, you need to pick the nice Jewish boys. Rosenstein would have issued a letter.
Have you ever slept with a nice Jewish boy?
No.
Okay, I have. So,
But I'm just saying, Rosenstein is your man. That went in 20 years.
Sorry.
On the radio show, in 20 years, people are going to say they're going to hail that person as the hero. That's the person that did everything by the book. He called the balls and strikes. Then he danced. The first press conference, your boyfriend did a little dance. Now he need to apologize for getting some little dance. by saying Hillary Clinton.
He has nothing to apologize for. This was all about. You know who needs to apologize? I'll tell you who needs to apologize. Rudy Giuliani needs to be perp walked. James Kallstrom needs to be perp walked. The agents he was talking to in the New York FBI, they need to be perp walked. There were people inside the New York FBI that were leaking information, active agents that were leaking information because they hated Hillary Clinton so much that they were threatening that if James Comey didn't do something, that they would get on the TV themselves. When Rudy Giuliani was on Fox News and he said that he had something up his sleeve, it was 2 days later that Comey got the Clinton computer, and 2 days later, that's when. And by the way, everybody, Comey didn't have a press conference about that. He simply wrote a letter to Congress telling Congress what had happened, and that was leaked to Fox News.
But that first press conference was the problem. But
the first press conference he gave was to say that all of this talk about Hillary Clinton being a criminal, there was no intent for her to give classified information to any adversary or to any foreign government or to anybody, that she was just using Gmail. And so he wasn't going to prosecute her. He thought she was careless, but it wasn't up to the level of a criminal prosecution like Scooter Libby, who outed an active CIA operative as punishment for her husband writing an op-ed in the New York Times, and they wanted a war. That's the level to which it has to, rise. And it only rose to that level with Scooter Libby and not with Hillary Clinton. Okay, yeah. So he didn't do anything wrong, and by the way, he never, ever announced that he was reopening up the Hillary Clinton email investigation. He wrote a letter, and that letter was given to Fox News. And people who don't know the story, and I know you do, because I could tell by the details you have that you've read it. I know what you've read too. You read Vanity Fair. I know what you read.
Yes, and it was Chavez Chevy. That Utah, that's why the Utah motherfucker had to try to get up out of there. It was him. He's the one that leaked the letter.
Listen, don't you trash my boyfriend. They keep putting him in these unwinnable situations, and somehow he follows the law.
I know. But it's that Rosenstein. Hey, I'm not gay, but I'll take Rosenstein. You can have
you can have him.
Rosenstein will be looked at.
Have him. Take him. He's yours. No, hands off Rosenstein for me. He's all yours, Carrie, my love. All yours.
And then one more thing about the post office, because you made a mistake. Just one small mistake.
All right.
In 2006, the postal workers and postal service was getting ready to buy 5,000 electric cars. They were going to retrofit all of the postal cars electrically because they said they only went 50. They went under 100 miles every day. And in 2006, after we won Congress, when the Democrats won Congress, they hurry up and ram that shit in after November because those people was going to have electric cars. Can you imagine seeing 1 million postal electric cars around? Then everybody else would start buying electric cars. And they put that 75 years there, and no one talks about it. Even Jon Stewart got it running on the Daily Show. He was talking about, they make the prices too low. No, it's 75 years.
75 years. They had to fund a pension plan for 75 freaking years for people who weren't even born yet that might one day decide to go work for the Postal Service. Listen, it was a all-out full frontal attack on Postal Service, and that's what Trump is listening to the Cheney Bush people. That's who are left. Okay, the garbagey of the garbagest. Okay, the most garbagey people are back because no one else will work for him. No one. And that's why he's at the bottom of the pickle barrel. He's at the bottom of the bullshit barrel. That's why you get Bolton in there. And, they're going, hey, everything old is new again. Remember when we did, why don't you try this? You want to go after baby? We went after the Postal Service. Do it again. So unbelievable. Oh, well, pardon Scooter Libby. I mean, the favor, it's right in front of your face. Victoria Tensing and Joe DeGeneva are trading legal advice for a pardon. I mean, it's right there in front of your face. It's so bad. Gary in California.
Hi, Randy. It's worse than you think. When Scooter Libby outed Valerie Plame, he not only ended her career, he ended the careers of everyone associated with her.
That's right.
And she worked out of a company as an energy consultant.
Right.
And her job was to find and dismantle nuclear weapons. She had done that for 20 years.
I know. And you know what's really crazy, though? When you revisit this story and you realize that, spies embed themselves as energy consultants, and then you look at what George Papadopoulos said, he was an energy consultant, and obviously he's pled guilty. And then you look at Carter Page, and he's going to Russia on behalf of the Trump administration, and he's posing as an energy analyst. I mean, an energy, this is like the best cover for CIA operatives. And for spies, generally. But she was on our side, and Trump's hired the people on the side of Russia. This is sick.
It is sick.
I know. Energy analysts. They're all energy analysts. CIA embeds people into energy, companies as energy analysts. Think about the people that Trump surrounded himself with. George Papadopoulos pled guilty. He said he was an energy analyst, right? You look at Carter Page. He said he was an energy analyst. The other guys, Paul Manafort was a lobbyist for Viktor Yanukovych, who was Putin's hand-picked dictator in Ukraine. I mean, he picked the other side, and he picked all their spies. Kislyak is a spy. He's a spy master. He's a recruiter that was operating in the United States. I mean, they went to the other side.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Rosenstein, he's being almost baited by several supporters on television into firing. I'm told by White House officials that so far there is nothing there yet, but it obviously could get there. And that is where I think you will see his reaction. He is going to feel like he has to do something to reclaim the narrative, and just tweeting is not going to be enough, because as we are seeing, Comey and this interview, which doesn't even air until another couple of days, is going to be everywhere. And that is going to make him crazy. Remember, he is going to be, I believe, in D.C. this weekend. I don't think they have plans. And then he was supposed to be at the Summit of the Americas. They canceled that. He is then going to go to Mar-a-Lago next week for a summit with the Japanese Prime Minister. This is going to be a lot of downtime with him in front of the TV stewing, and that is always a danger point.
Oh, my God. Can you believe that? That's Maggie Haberman from the New York Times. Can you believe that we have a president who has to be babysat? That we have a president who has nothing on his calendar, nothing except watching TV and stewing and flailing and screaming at people and yelling at people and wanting to do something to change the narrative, something. So, this is so wag the dog. You remember when Bill Clinton, launched a couple of missiles into... I want to say Albania, because that was the Wag the Dog movie. Willie Nelson actually wrote that song, Albania, Albania, for Wag the Dog, the movie, which was supposed to be a parody of what Clinton did when he lobbed some cruise missiles into, I don't know, where do we want to say? Back in the day, I don't know, it's 20 years ago. And they said, he's doing it to change the subject from Monica Lewinsky. This is why he did it. But it turned out he was actually fighting Al-Qaeda back then, except you hadn't heard about Al-Qaeda yet. But this is crazy that we're sitting here and everybody's, what else could happen today? Well, let's see. He's got to change the narratives. Maybe he'll fire Rosenstein. Maybe he'll launch some Tomahawk missiles into Syria. Maybe he'll start a war with Russia. The Russian media is already telling the Russian people to stock up on gas masks. And, powdered milk, and they're doing these on state media because that's all they have in Russia. It's like basically think all you had was Fox News. Can you imagine how disoriented you'd be if all you could watch was Fox? The amount of lying that they do, the amount of BS that goes over their airway. I mean, now they're discrediting everybody at the DOJ, everybody at the FBI, except for Rudy Giuliani, except for James Gallstrom, the people who actually did commit crimes alongside the FBI. The guys who sat on the TV and admitted that they were talking to active New York FBI agents. On the TV, they said it. Which one is it? Do you know? Oh, 28. Okay, here.
And I think he's got a surprise or two that you're going to hear about in the next 2 days.
Right.
I mean, I'm talking about some pretty big surprise.
Oh, yeah, I heard you say that this morning. What do you mean?
You'll see.
Stay tuned. Rudy Giuliani, you're lucky because we got to go. I'm out of time. Otherwise, I keep pressing you.
We're not going to go down, and we're certainly not going to stop fighting. We've got a couple things up our sleeve that should turn this around in a way that even the liberal pollsters will get to see it.
Jesus God. I mean, come on, everybody. Come on. And this was meant to tell Comey that, you know, he's going to get handed a computer that the New York Department had been sitting on for 30 days. That all of a sudden it's going to end up in Comey's lap. And on there, the active agents told Rudy Giuliani, told James Kallstrom, were emails from Hillary Clinton to Huma Abedin on Anthony Weiner's computer. And they were going to dump that on Comey. That's why that happened on October 26th. On October 28th, that is when Comey got the computer, Anthony Weiner's computer. And that is when Comey wrote a letter. He didn't tell anybody. I mean, he didn't tell the press. He didn't have a press conference. Everybody has this distorted memory of what happened. He wrote a letter to Congress because he answered questions that he would look into any new information that he got. So he wrote to Congress saying that he was going to look into Anthony Weiner's computer because there were supposedly new emails on there that they hadn't seen. And they worked all that weekend. And 2 days before the election, he said whatever was on Anthony Weiner's computer were duplicates. We'd seen it all. It didn't change any of the outcome of the investigation. 2 days before the election. And the reason why that happened is because Rudy Giuliani, who was the chief mouthpiece for the Trump campaign, and James Kallstrom, who was a former New York field office chief, was on Fox News the whole time threatening that they had stuff, that they were talking to active agents and they knew what was on that computer, and they sat on it and then dumped it on Comey. Comey wrote a letter to Congress going, all right, got new information. And they Congress leaked that. I'm guessing it was Trey Gowdy, one of these, crazy. Now, all of a sudden, Trey Gowdy's going to retire because he didn't enjoy his time. He didn't really do anything. That he didn't get anything accomplished. And now he's on a book tour with, the Republican senator. They wrote a book together. They've bridged their divides. What divide do they have? Tim Scott and Trey Gowdy. They're both legislators. Let's see. They both are Republicans. They both went after Hillary Clinton. What bridged it? Oh, that's right. Tim Scott's black. That's such a racist ploy. And they sit there on Fox News promoting their book about how they bridged their great divide. What divide did they have? Melanin? Unbelievable. Amy in Los Angeles.
Hey, Randy.
Hi.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm very excited about the cherry. Give it to me.
Okay, take a deep breath.
Anyway. Oh, there we go. All right. Hey, I wanted to go back to your conversation about the sorry, I was outside. I want to go back to your conversation about the postal service.
Okay.
It's an interesting thing that he's all of a sudden breaking this open too. So this is another thing where there's all this distraction and they can start to dismantle even more of our institutions. But I used to sell media. In fact, I was in radio myself for 2 decades, and I used to also sell advertising when I was in the business newspaper business, and the Postal Service, one of my accounts, they used to do sponsorships for business development for their direct mail services and sponsorships and things like that. So this whole idea that they are not a profitable institution is just bunk, especially because they are not a taxpayer-funded model. But the other thing is where I don't think people talk about this enough is that one of the reasons why they're on the Republicans' radar is because they're the largest employer in the United States that's unionized. And I really think it's another one of those divide and conquer strategies that they really want to go after Democratic, voting blocks.
Well, what people need to understand is back in 2006, had the post office not been required to prepay for 75 years into a pension plan for people who weren't even born yet, who might one day decide to go to work for the Postal Service, they would have been in the black. They would have been profitable by at least $1.5 billion. And this effort to privatize them, I mean, this was one of the things Ralph Nader was talking about back in the day, that they would have a $1.5 billion surplus if they didn't have to prepay 75 years. And no other government agency and no private corporation and no union, nobody was ever required to prepay for 75 years a pension plan.
Yep, and that is part of, again, that divide and conquer strategy of traditional union that are very active and voting to go after Democratic voting blocs.
Yeah, and I will tell you that my experience with postal workers is long. I mean, I've been talking to postal workers since, 1998 or 9 or something like that. No, even before 1992 when I had a local show. And I tell you, they're some of the happiest people. They work really hard. They do their thing. Everybody makes fun of the Postal Service, but I know, if I put something in the mail, you're going to have it 2 days later. Do you know? It's just,
my dad
for one low forever stamp price.
Yep, my dad retired, and my brother worked there until he passed away.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've been there since even when they did the reorganization in 1972. But the other thing that they, again, why they're going after it is that it's an Amazon thing, right? So it's tied into everything. But it's interesting because FedEx and UPS, which are privatized, rely heavily on the post office.
For the last mile of delivery, that's right.
Right, and rural communities, too, that FedEx and UPS it's not financially viable for them to go into these rural communities, which are Republican voting blocks.
They're all really good services. I enjoy all of them. I love my FedEx guy. We all love our guy that wears brown. Everybody loves UPS. It means we're getting presents today. The Postal Service, though, delivers the last mile for almost everything. Yep. And everybody loves their postal worker. It's you put $20 in a mailbox at Christmas time because you're grateful that somebody services your inbox, at this age.
Yeah.
So
it's the basic foundation. Starts with Pony Express.
Let me tell you how important it is. Let me tell you how important it is. Okay, to commerce and to the growth of a nation. Costa Rica doesn't have any postal service.
Oh, wow.
No, they don't have postal service. They don't have addresses. Their streets don't have names because, like the road is like go to the Green Rock and make a left. And when you get to the yellow house, you'll make a right. And then you go to the fig tree and where the third house, where a blue house, they don't have a postal service, okay? And it's killed their ability. I mean, they're for a developing nation. They are so far advanced. They make Honduras look stupid. They make Nicaragua look stupid. I will tell you, there's a growing middle class there. There's a lot of good work, good jobs there. It's
high literacy rate.
98% literacy. Almost every child goes to college. Okay. But that said, the thing that's holding them back is they don't have a postal service. Okay. And I swear to you, if you talk to any of my friends who are Costa Rican, they all will tell me the same thing. We will never have a postal service in my lifetime. It's not going to change. It's not going to change. And if you look at the boon they would get in GDP, in commerce, in business, if they had a postal service, you kind of got to sit there and shake your head and say, no, it's going to be if it's the last thing I do, we're going to get postal service to my house in Costa Rica.
Well, that's amazing. I didn't realize that, and it does show how we've advanced because of this infrastructure.
Absolutely.
That was built,
yes,
300 years ago. But the last thing I want to mention is going back to the jobs, because it is such a large employer. The Postmaster General, which is in essence the CEO, makes like $250,000.
Yeah.
Name a Fortune 500, Fortune 500 company. The amount of value we get with the post office it's it's irreplaceable.
It is.
And to talk, the last part I'm going to mention is that your earlier caller who had mentioned about the electrification of the vehicles, guess what FedEx did?
Yeah.
And UPS.
Yeah.
They bought electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So it's insane, and I just really wanted to mention that and get into a little bit deeper. But this really is about the Democratic voting bloc. They want to go after this large institution because it's unionized, and they want to privatize it. So all the things that they did in 2006.
Actually,
and
you know,
what they've done
this is an elevated conversation that you and I are having, and all the postal workers out there know that this happened. The other people that are listening don't know, but I will say, when it comes to Trump, he's not as deep a thinker as you are. He's doing this because John Bolton told him it could be done because they did it in Bush Cheney, and he could get his revenge on Jeff Bezos, who also owns the Washington Post.
Yep. Well, Randy, I'll let you go, but I just wanted to say I was in radio. We carried your Air America show when I was a sales manager in Honolulu. Rock radio is my first love. And the one thing I wanted to tell you about rock radio, I call it my really crappy ex-boyfriend, because in the beginning, the sex was the best. We had so much fun. We partied. And then he just kind of got sicker. He became an alcoholic, and he cheated on me. And then I kept saying, why am I still in it? Because it was so good. And then eventually you just have to let go. And so I really...
Is he the president of the United States now?
Oh, God. Okay, you know what? Because of all of your conversation today, I've had a pool of vomit in the tip top of my esophagus. So thank you for that.
I told you. I warned you. The whole thing was going to be vomit-inducing. Really, it's just
Randy,
so vile.
You are the best. I really appreciate your such a vital service. And buy a stinking podcast. I gave away one to my girlfriend for her birthday. You rock.
Thank you. Thank you. So do you. Thank you. Thank you for thinking. Well, I love smart callers. She had it all, man. She was the first-time caller, and she was very thoughtful, and she had a good phone. Carrie in Dallas, just saying. Love talking to you, but your phone is so bad. But we were patient. We were patient with you.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Other rumor that I get is there's a kind of revolution going on inside the FBI about the original conclusion being completely unjustified and almost a slap in the face of the FBI's integrity. And I know that from former agents. I know that even from a few active agents who obviously don't want to identify themselves.
So this has been boiling up in the FBI since generic. I did nothing to get it out. I had no role in it. Did I hear about it? You're darn right I heard about it. And I can't even repeat the language that I heard.
I just want to make sure we're getting that right. We listened to the audio, and you were talking about current FBI agents, at least in that radio interview with Lars Larson.
Well, the information I've been getting is from former FBI agents.
So you misspoke to Lars Larson?
If I did say that, that was wrong. I have not spoken to a on-duty FBI agent about anything. I guess for the last 10 months. I don't know. I've actually never talked about this investigation to any current member of the Justice Department or current FBI agent. I don't know if I can make it any clearer than that. You can look at my telephone records if you want.
I know that from former agents. I know that even from a few active agents who obviously don't want to identify themselves.
No, I'm out of time. Otherwise, I keep pressing you. I'm out of time. Otherwise, I keep pressing you. I'm out of time. Otherwise, I keep pressing you.
That's why Comey had to send the letter to Congress. And that letter was leaked to Fox News. And that's how we found out that Comey had to look at Anthony Weiner's computer because Rudy Giuliani's active agents, his friends inside the FBI, set this up. You want to know about, where the dirty stuff happened? It happened in the New York field office of the FBI during the Hillary Clinton investigation. And that is what happened. And Comey, I don't know if he knows it. I don't know if he can't prove it. I don't know why he won't tell anybody. Maybe he has but I will never let that story go until Rudy Giuliani is forced under oath to tell the truth about what the New York FBI field office was telling him they were going to do and they were doing with Anthony Weiner's computer, and how James Kallstrom also knew what they were doing with Anthony Weiner's computer, and what they were doing with it was sitting on it. They were sitting on it. And then they dumped it on James Comey 11 days before the election. And that is what, Comey testified to that. When he gave his testimony, he actually said that he all of a sudden, gets this computer and there are emails, and he didn't think he would get done with it before the election. But his agents worked over the weekend, and they worked tirelessly and endlessly, and they were able to determine 2 days before the election that these were duplicates. That's what happened. Diane in Fort Myers.
Hey, Randy.
Hi.
I am just so disgusted. Well, first of all, we need to give our president a pacifier. And I don't know, something he can play with while he watches Fox News, since that's where he gets.
Let's not baby him, okay? Let's not. No. Let's make him, like a Clockwork Orange. Let's glue his freaking eyes open and make him watch the Comey interview over and over on an endless loop tape until he exhausts himself and collapses upon himself.
He is going to go ballistic.
He's going to lose his mind. All narcissists eventually do. Really, what happens is when their mechanisms for coping and dealing with their fear that people will find out that they're not, good people, or that they're liars, or that they've been, manipulating everything around them. If they feel their feelings, they will collapse upon themselves, and that's what's going to happen to him too.
But I just keep feeling like if we could just divide the country in half, we have one half and the other half. We'll have health care for all. We'll have our half.
I know.
I can't stand it anymore. I
know.
I just don't know what's going to happen anymore. I try to be optimistic, but this guy is a freaking whack job. I mean, that had happened. Okay, in this country should be a lesson to everybody about how it only takes one madman, one lunatic, right.
one
Exactly.
really dishonest mafioso to destroy everything that people have worked for and built. Not just their entire lives, but their parents' entire lives, and their parents before them entire lives. And I mean, I think Comey says this in the book somewhere, that it only takes one person to destroy hundreds of years of progress. And we're living through it right now. And everybody needs to, stop saying things like, well, there are no qualifications to be president except you have to be 35 years old and a naturalized.
Wow.
People say that all the time, especially when they were talking about Trump. They kept saying, like if you said, well, what's his qualification? They would come back at you and say, well, there are no qualifications to be president. You know what? You better have a higher standard next time. That's all I could tell you, because the amount of suffering that is going on in this country is so unnecessary. And the crash of 2008 was so unnecessary. You have got to start picking your presidents with an eye towards what have you done for me lately.
Well, I was talking to my grandson today, and he said we were learning about the Bay of Pigs today. And I just looked at him and I said, oh, God help us. If we would have had this idiot back then, we wouldn't be talking today.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're sort of there. We're sort of in this standoff with Russia, you know? I mean, Russia has an also-ran military. There's, I could tell you exactly what they have. They have 798,000 people in their military. We have 1 million. And those are just active duty guys we have. And they're spread so thin. They got like 20,000 troops in Ukraine, and they got like 8,000 over here, and they got, you know, and their military is so antiquated. It's so, they're still flying MiGs, okay? This is just such a fake thing. But nuclear weapons, and you know, they have over 7,000. We have like 6,900. That is the way that you know, the world ends, if that ever happens. But in a conventional war, why is this man so afraid of freaking stupid, also ran third-rate, fourth-rate Russia? Why is he helping them get to the oil fields in Syria? Why is he allowing Syria and Iran and Russia to form some trifecta of evil over there? And he just sits back, relaxes, and, you know, enjoy. I don't know. All I could say is that, you know, this man, if he starts anything and kills any Russian civilians or any Russian proxy fighters or military guys, it's going to be a nuclear showdown.
But I think you're right. They have.
It's the only way they can fight. They can't fight us conventionally. They can't.
Right, but they've got something on him that's so embarrassing.
Something's going on.
Even that will embarrass him.
Yeah, the guy who feels no shame. That's what I'm saying to you. If he ever felt shame, if he ever felt any of his feelings, he would collapse on himself. The weight of feeling that would kill. I mean, it would literally throw him into, you know, some sort of a psychotic episode. That's what scares me.
Well, when you were gagging at the beginning of the show,
God.
I was laughing. It was like, you never disappoint me, Randy. You always bring you always bring a smile to my face.
Well, that's what I'm here for. Thanks, Diane.
All right, take care.
All right, you too. Ed, truck driver, Chicago, go.
Hey, Randy, how you doing, sweetheart? Long time no hear.
Hey, how you?
I'm good. It's Ed and Sally. I know you remember everything. And I hope I don't have a crappy phone. I'm in my truck at 6 feet.
You sound great.
Great. Tell me, please,
all right,
that this man will not get away with pardoning Manafort, because that's all Manafort has. I know they have enough on him to send him to jail forever. But please tell me that he's not going to get away with that.
Well, he might, but it will be obstruction of justice.
Oh, wow.
He might. He could pardon whoever he wants. Everybody knows that.
And in the words of your radio sister, Stephanie Miller, Trump is such a whiny little bitch. He makes
Is that what she calls him?
Yeah, she calls you almost every day. She's my appetizer until the main meal, which is you, comes along. But here's the thing, man. One more question.
I'm so happy to be part of your buffet.
oh, big time. Listen, I have to ask you one more question. When it comes down to Trump, we have him, right? I mean, Mueller and the guys, even if they fire Mueller, we got him, right? He's not getting out of this, right?
No.
No,
and neither are his children. And that's, you know, like I said, he's tearing our families apart. And so, you know, the sweet revenge I want served up cold is, you know, his son, his son-in-law, his daughter, all in, you know, minimum security prison somewhere, serving out their time for colluding with the Russians. No, I mean, really, he's torn up our family. Let them have a reunion just like the Menendez brothers. Let them have their reunion in prison.
You know, Trump supporters are so damn predictable.
Yeah.
They're all over my job. I'm a Teamster, Randy, and I have healthcare and all that good stuff. And I ask you, why do you continue to vote for people who can't stand you as a union man? Why do you do that? And you know what they tell me? Well, what about what Hillary did? I said, are you serious? Hillary
it doesn't matter anymore. You know, what Hillary didn't do. It doesn't matter. What matters to me is you, for the last 30, 40 years, have been voting against your own best interests, expecting a different result each time. Each time you get the same thing. Tax cuts for the wealthy, giant deficits, and wars. So the reason that I got the clearest thing, or the thing that makes the most sense to me, is they say, well, we're for tax cuts because one day we'll be rich. And so we want those tax cuts in place for the day that we make $1 million. Okay, aspirational voting is what it is. But we're down to the place where all Trump has sold them is that you may be poor, but at least you're not black. You may be poor, but at least you're not Mexican, and at least you're not a Jew. Do you know what I mean? And this is what we're down to now.
Yeah. Hey, one more question for you, and you are so right, Randy. This is what I hit them with, and they look like a deer in headlights. And I got this from you. I said, name me the last Republican president that left this country in better shape than they found it.
Yeah.
And the one, Ronald Reagan. And I'm like, are you serious? Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan left this country jacked up. You remember Iran-Contra? It's like they don't have any idea, or they don't want to
We
talk
also
about
had,
that.
the stock market fail under Ronald Reagan. We had Black Monday. People lost their shirts. We had interest rates like at 18%. We also had taxes raised on us, gas taxes, and lost our credit card interest deduction. I mean, he taxed the crap out of it. He raised taxes 19 times, but only on the little guy.
And the one thing he did that for us union members is he got rid of all the air traffic control.
That was the first thing he did, Patco. I remember that, right? And bankrupted airlines. I mean, this guy was just devastating for the middle class. Absolutely devastating for the middle class. That's and then started illegal wars in Central America, for which we are still paying.
Yeah.
Why do you
Randy,
think Salvador and
so
Honduras is in such terrible shape? I mean, it was his stupid secret war in Central America. I love you,
I love
too.
you so much. Howard is a very lucky man.
And whoever Mrs. Ed is a very lucky woman.
Thank you so much. We love you in Chicago, Randy.
Thank you, babe. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thanks. Okay, 10 o'clock Sunday night, ABC. We're all going to watch, right? Now, remember, that was a 5-hour interview that was conducted, and we're only going to get to see, an hour of it. So then there will be other appearances. I mean, all next week. This is why I wanted to get the story out, so you understand why Comey did what he did. He'd never had a press conference. He wrote a letter because the FBI dumped it on him. Have a good weekend. Bye, Stinking Podcast.